Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Melvin James. James was shot and killed Wednesday, May 2nd, 2007 in the 4200 block of 3rd Avenue in Leimert Park, according to LA County coroner records. Arlister Gordon II was subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. In the early morning hours of May 2nd, 2007, Tonya Taylor was talking, drinking, and playing cards with several other people in the front bedroom of Shelby Williamson's house, which was the rear house in the 4200 block of 3rd Avenue, a residence Taylor described as a crack house. Melvin James was one of the persons present at the time. At about 5 a.m., 3 men entered the house. According to Taylor, one was short, one was medium height, and one was tall. The short man asked James if he had anything to sell, but James indicated that he was not selling drugs at the time. During that conversation, the tall man turned around, reached over Taylor's head, and pointed a gun at James's head. The tall man told James to give up the money. James tried to grab the gun from him, and the two men struggled. Taylor ran to the kitchen during the struggle and pulled the mattress over her head. She heard 2 gunshots, saw James on the ground, and ran out of the house. She didn't see the 3 intruders leave the house. Melvin James died as a result of 2 gunshot wounds. Taylor identified Samuel Riggs from a photo 6-pack as a short intruder who was doing all the talking. She identified Kevin Chevelle at the preliminary hearing as the medium-sized man. She selected defendant's photograph from a 6-pack as looking like the shooter. She wrote on the back of his photograph, "kind of looked like him." At trial, she did not think defendant looked like the person in that photograph. Shelby Williams had been asleep in the house when he was awakened by a loud pop from the other side of a curtain. He sat up and saw 2 men coming through the curtain. One of the men asked Williams for the location of the back door. Williams pointed it out and the man ran out the door. Police showed Williams a photo 6-pack. He selected defendant's photograph as someone he had possibly seen before in the neighborhood. He selected a different photograph as looking familiar because of the eyes. Ricky Marks was sleeping in his car parked across the street from Shelby Williams' house when he was awakened by the sound of car doors slamming. He saw the 3 men get out of a white Ford Taurus and walk toward the rear house. They came out a little while later, got into the car, and left. He recognized the driver as Kevin Chevelle and the little dude with him as Samuel Riggs. He identified defendant in a photo 6-pack, but the identification was based on something someone told him. Kevin Chevelle testified that on the date of the incident, he had stopped at Riggs' house because he was drunk and wanted to get some sleep before driving home. Riggs asked Chevelle to take him to get some crack cocaine. Chevelle agreed, and as he and Riggs walked toward Chevelle's white Taurus, defendant joined them. Chevelle stayed in the car for a few minutes, then got out and walked toward the house to find out what was taking so long. He went to the back door and went through to an inner doorway with a curtain in front of it. He heard noise, arguing, and screaming, and then he heard gunshots coming from the other side of the curtain. Chevelle ran out the back door, then back up the driveway. Defendant came from behind, grabbed him by the collar, and pulled and dragged Chevelle to his car. Defendant had a gun in his hand, and when Chevelle tried to resist, defendant hit him in the back of the head with the gun. All 3 men got into the car, and defendant told Chevelle, "Get out of here, drive." Chevelle drove back to Riggs' house. Riggs and defendant got out, and Chevelle drove away. Chevelle was arrested 12 days later. He was later considered a victim of kidnapping as charged in count 4. Defense counsel rested his closing argument on identification. He addressed the inconsistencies in the evidence and emphasized that the DNA under the victim's fingernails was not defendant's. Quote, "The question is whether or not identification has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the issue in this case. You tell me, do you have a reasonable doubt as to the identification of the shooter or not? Look at the DNA. I think that's your reasonable doubt if nothing else. Someone's DNA is under those nails, and we don't know whose it is." Following the trial, the jury found defendant not guilty of the charged crimes, rejecting the identification of defendant as the 3rd man who entered the house with Riggs and Chevelle and committed the murder and attempted robbery, or who by use of gun forced Chevelle to drive them away, committing either kidnapping or false imprisonment. The jury had a reasonable doubt that defendant was the person with a gun at the crime scene. Melvin James was 54 years old at the time of death.